What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1491 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, the best baseball in the city outside the Dome. Join me June 2nd. Rod Black's mustache guaranteed to be in attendance. Come on by, say hi. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning Moneris podcast hosted by FOTML Grego and Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, taking my call all the way from Halifax is John Gallagher.
What do you know about that?
How you doing, Spike? How are you doing?
Buddy, I'm in the sunshine in beautiful Halifax with my pants around my ankles and thinking of, you know what I'm thinking of? Of all the girls I've loved before who traveled in and out my door. I'm glad they came along. I tried that I was on a radio show here in Halifax a little while ago, and the guy asked me, Johnny, how you doing? I'm like, pants around my ankles and thinking of Wendy from Dartmouth on line 11. Then I got a call from the manager afterwards. Don't do that. Anyway, I'm fabulous, Mike. And how are you? You, a rock star. You see those commercials when people told to stop calling people rock stars?
Right.
You're a rock star.
With Ozzy Osbourne.
Your podcast is through the roof. And I'll tell you more about that because I'm suffering from a post-stroke syndrome, and most people know about my stroke because of you. But you have the floor. You've got John Gallagher. Ask away.
I have so many questions for you, and I want to hear about this stroke because I think it was mentioned with Peter Gross, and we'll talk about what the hell happened. But firstly, when you say, you're thinking about all the girls you've loved before, because I've listened to every episode of Gallagher and Gross Save the World, I know that's a lot of gals.
And Peter will tell you he's met and bedded, an expression I like to use, some pretty famous people that we all know and love. Peter, he may be 4'11", he may be small, but he's slow.
Well, John, I can count on one hand the number of women that Peter Gross has been lucky enough to bed, but I would require the entire full Sky Dome to count the number of women you've been with. But okay, John, before I have many questions for you, but please share with us.
Please.
Before we talk about the stroke, I think the last time you were on Toronto Mic'd, you were living like off Avenue Road in Toronto, and you were a Toronto guy. You've been a Toronto guy since brother Jake Edwards brought you to Q107 from Halifax. Right. But please share with us, why did you leave Toronto, and why are you now calling me from your home in Halifax?
Well, as you may have found out, they're kind of killing off sportscasters in Toronto. It's just, there's no more. I mean, even weekends on Global and CTV and CBC are gone. So there goes that. There goes a couple of warm bodies filling those chairs. But they're just killing everyone off, And I'll say this the right way. I'm not exactly the right gender, and I'm not exactly the right color. I'm an aging white male who they're just not putting in front of a camera anymore. And God love them for that, because we had our freaking run for 50 and 60 years going, back to the days of, Kurt Gowdy and Vin Scully. It's just, That's fine. Go, run with it. You deserve it. And we had our run, you know. And again, it's not a racist thing or anything, but it's, you know, there's some talented people out there who deserve to be seen, you know. And they're just not hiring me anymore, for one thing, except for voiceovers and stuff. So that's a good sign.
Well, we'll get to that. But, John, still, that explains why there's no job for you at, I don't know, TSN or Sportsnet or Global or whatever city. But why? You just felt like going home? I'm just curious. Like, you were such a Toronto guy since you were, you know, brought here by Brother Jake back in the day. But you're back home now. Like, is it just you felt like home was calling you?
Well, I don't know if you've ever been to Halifax, but it's one of the most undiscovered, unappreciated, unbelievably beautiful cities. The second sunniest city in Canada, next to Port Coquitlam, and I suffer from SAD, S-A-D, the seasonal deficiency. And so I've got to get out in the sun. Right now, it's 18 degrees, nothing but sun. I put an SPF 15 on just for this interview, and it's just beautiful out here. Now, on a sad note, I came back to visit my mom, who's just a couple hours away, and sadly we lost her at 98.6. It's like the song, hey, 98.6, but she's no longer with us. But I came back just so I can visit her and hold her hand, and hey, pretty good run, 98.6.
Well, John, my sincere condolences on the loss of your mom. I'm sorry to hear that, but sounds like she had a pretty good life. I'm sorry to hear she's gone.
Great life. I drove her crazy, but she had a great life. Thanks, and thank you for the kind sentiments.
Oh, and by the way, you talk about, you know, suffering from SAD, and because I know you so well, having produced you and Peter Gross on Gallagher and Gross Save the World, and we got to know each other quite well. I do know you need your son. And I just saw a photo, like, I think it's from last week. You'll tell me, but you're at the pool with Dutchy from Pretty in Pink. That's John Cryer. like, can you, like, are you buddies with John Cryer? You're just hanging out with him in St. Martin?
I am now. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time, you know, with John Hughes, what does Spike Lee calls them? Spike Lee joints. It was a John Hughes joint. Right. And Dutchy, and I'm like, John Cryer? Yeah, I played with his kid for 2 days, playing basketball by the pool in St. Martin, the French side. The Dutch side's nice too. And he's just like, it's Dutchy, you know. So let's gather around for a little reminiscence of Molly Ringwald and James Spader and Matthew McCarthy. It was a great movie, and Dutchy couldn't have been nicer. And you saw the photos. Yeah. Dutchy! I mean, come on! Talk about shite luck. T.O. Mike.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself in these sunny destinations, but let's get serious for a moment here. Tell me about the stroke, because Peter Gross had a stroke, and it was like a little thing, like a tick. I can't remember what they call this thing. You'll tell me, but he had a little stroke, and he had vision problems for a couple of days, and now he's sort of back and he's his typical Peter Gross self. But tell me about your stroke. I need the details.
Yeah. You know, it's not like I was burying the lead the last year or so, but you know, I've gone through a couple of steps. I haven't posted on social media because I didn't have to, because I got 12 or 15, 20 calls after you had mentioned on the air. That's fine. Go nuts that I had a stroke. It was a mild one, nothing serious. The bad news, one of the side of my left foot is paralyzed, perhaps permanently. I couldn't hold my left arm over my head, but it's almost like a Jerry Seinfeld. Who needs the baby toe? What's the deal with the baby toe? And one night I got up, and you know, and Peter's father would say, the only time I'm not peeing is when I'm peeing. And I was sliding off the walls and trying to make my way to the washroom at 3 a.m, holding onto the cabinets and doorknobs, just completely discombobulated. You know, the good news is I'm a righty, but after the, oh God, Mike, the 12-hour stints in the eMERGE and the CAT scans, the EKGs and the blood work and the X-rays, I can still walk. Think Walter Brennan and Kevin Spacey, but I'm a lot better now, and you know, thank God I still have my usual outgoing wit and happenstance, so we can continue to do these interviews, which is fine.
Well, John, you're well enough to go to St. Martin and play basketball with Ducky's kid.
You know, and open bar, and let's swim up, and he was trying to really be cool about that. No, I'm not John Cryer. Come on. You are. No, I just try to keep his anonymity. And I'm like, Ducky, it's me. It's like just the best 2 weeks. And we just hung out and just,
But tell me something, John. So I called you yesterday. We had a brief chat, and I interrupted a nap, and then you told me you nap 3 times a day. Can you tell me a little bit about this? This is a post-stroke syndrome where you're sleepy. What's going on?
Yeah. It's a post-stroke fatigue syndrome, and I'm tired all the time. Like never before. I have to sleep for an hour every 4 or 5 hours. That was really kind of early on. But my ex-girlfriend, who I adore, her husband had a stroke, and that's how you recuperate. Get the brain going, get it to resurged, and is that the word? And I have to tell you,
now.
I asked you this nicely. Sometimes I'm really not that sharp, but you know what? It could have been. It could have been a lot worse. I have to do my exercises, and I have to, I could be sitting with my Jamaican nurse named the Fabulous Moolah with a wet nap, watching VHS tapes of all her old wrestling moves and eating tapioca pudding 3 times a day. That's bad.
Well, John,
Tim, yes,
you're everything for you. In this, you're a great guy and I love talking to you, but your voice, you have the voice. I literally hear it on Dodge Ram commercials. I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. Your voice is everything. And some people have a stroke and their voice is affected. I mean, I'm thinking of Bob McCowan.
I was going to ask you about Bob. How's he doing, Bob McCowan?
I'm the wrong guy to ask. John, I'm the only guy. Oh, I'm not the only guy, but he's like the only guy who doesn't care for Toronto Mike. Can you believe it? I have no relationship with him. In fact, it's...
No!
Yeah. He kind of was snarky when I had the audacity to invite him to be my guest for episode 500 of Toronto Mike. I should have just called John Gallagher.
Well, I was on episode 500, so that's good.
That was 1,000. That was episode 1,000. That has.
Well, either way, we're not here to split atoms here, my friend.
But I don't know anything about.
I do remember having a great time on the air. I always have a great time with you and Peter Gross and who's my good friend? Perry Lefko
Perry Lefko loves you. He's a big John Gallagher head. Absolutely. So okay, but
he has no taste.
I don't know anything about Bob McCowan because, quite frankly, for whatever reason, he decided to dislike this podcast. Maybe it's a threat to his broadcasting supremacy. But if I threaten people, that's just me being myself. So I don't know anything about him, but I do know his speech was affected. His speech was affected by the stroke. And I'm listening to you now in my headphones because this is a phone call, everybody. I can't see the great John Gallagher, but I can hear you. And you sound as good as ever. You sound Dodge Ram worthy.
Oh my! Do you want to hear my Dodge Ram truck story?
Well, can I play it? I couldn't find it on YouTube, but I have a recording of it off the TV. Do you mind if I play a little bit of you? Sure. Okay. So
absolutely.
When I heard this voice on Sportsnet, I screamed to the kids. I said, everybody, that is an FOTM we know as John Gallagher. Here you go. Let's listen to this for a bit.
Rams playoffs for giving you a chance to win the new Ram 1500, featuring extensive touchscreens for the driver.
Clearly, it's recorded on the moon, John, so you'll have to forgive me, okay? But if I can find a better version, it's right.
I'll tell you a story.
The third goal of the period on the part of the Los Angeles Kings.
Drew Doughty rams home a goal, and I'm okay. So it's 1990, and I'm having lunch at the Molson Indy with. Let me tell you another story about the Molson Indy and how Labatt's paid everyone at Key 107 $20,000. Paola lives, and I'll tell you the story real quick.
Yeah.
$20,000, not to mention Molson for an entire year. Toronto Indy? Nah.
Wait, John.
Molson.
Labatt's gave you personally 20,000 Canadian dollars if you promise not to say the word Molson's for 1 calendar year.
Yes.
Wow.
And
okay,
along
keep
with
going.
Jeff Connors and Donna Saker and Jeff Chalmers on the $20,000 on the barrel's head. Oh, no.
Wow.
So anyway, I'm with Lee Iacocca at the Molson Indy, and I said, listen, I'm at the Dodge corner 2 at the Molson Indy, and can you come by? He says, yeah, absolutely, I'll come by. And we're doing a live hit, and he's on the air, and Lee Iacocca goes, you're a very enterprising young man. I think I'm going to take you down to Detroit and get you a job. And I looked into the camera. Moses Steimer, did you hear this? He makes a lot more money than you. I'm going. So I keep in touch with the Dodge people, and Lee Iacocca was on the cover of Time magazine. He changed the automotive industry in Detroit. Anyway, the guy from Detroit, from Dodge, Ram Dodge, he says, you got the commercial. If you can coerce one of the announcers to use the line Ram after the commercial runs, I'll give you another.
Wait. What number was that, John? I missed it. What number?
I don't know. I'm just looking at my my agent and my lawyer. And sure enough, the Ram truck. You'll see it tonight. No, I don't think there's a game tonight. Anyway, you'll see it. It's the Ram truck commercial. Yeah. Anyway, I won't mention the name of the guy I have to give half to. I'm just playing with you. He goes, Drew Doughty rams home a goal, and this game is tied in Vancouver. I'm like,
wow.
Ka-ching. So, I mean, Paola freaking lives. I remember I was living with Steve Anthony for a couple of years, and he says, hey, I got this deal with Air Jordans from Nike. Would you like a couple of boxes? You got to wear them on the air. I'm like, would I? And I have like 25 boxes of Air Jordans from 1989, 1990. It was at Much Music at the time. I'm like, good God. You know what they're going for on the Japanese
Wait, John, what size?
Market?
What size foot are you?
Yeah, I knew that'd be your next question.
I'm a 9, John. If these are 9. Okay, because I'm a 9. Maybe now that your foot is partially paralyzed, you'll cough those up and give them to Toronto Mike.
That's hilarious. No, I'll hook you up.
But so, John, the Dodge Ram, because, I mean, when I think of some of the voices I've heard voicing Dodge Ram commercials, like Sam Elliott, but they said, screw the Sam Elliott guy. He's a bum. We want the voice. And since the voice is no longer with us, shout out to Ridley Funeral Home, Mark Daly, we'll take John Gallagher.
You are a mensch. Sam Elliott. You can't beat that. Oh, my God. You know what? You know what's an overrated movie, and he's the best part of it, is The Big Lebowski.
You don't like it?
I never got it. Mike.
Oh, it's a bit irreverent, John, but, it's one of those movies that I find is highly rewatchable, and I feel like it's typical Coen brothers, so you're either down with the Coen brothers or you're not, I guess, but not going to be like, it's not going to be universally beloved, like a Forrest Gump or something, but if you get it, I think it hits hard. And John, I always told you that rug really ties the room together.
And the best line from that movie is John Turturro. He's Jesus. He says, you ever pull that stuff on me with your gun? I'm going to take it out of my wallet and put it up your ass and pull the trigger until it goes click. That is a great line.
See, we're still quoting it all these years later, so it must have something going for it.
That's right. And then he goes and licks licks his own balls, the bowling balls, and I just love Steve. Speaking of Steve Anthony, him and I went to Raising Arizona back in.
I loved Raising Arizona. Nicolas Cage, early Nicolas Cage too. I loved that movie.
Oh, good God. They didn't, and then he got into Barton Fink, and he got into all those strange movies. But I don't think the Coen, but Fargo just broke it up for him. But I love the Coen brothers. I do. I'm glad
one more quick line from Big Lebowski that I like quite a bit. So you'll be arguing with somebody, and they'll make a point, but they're being a dick about it, and they might be right. Okay, but I always think of that Big Lebowski line where he goes, "It's not that you're wrong; it's that you're an asshole." Right?
And back to Mr. Mustache, the dude.
Yeah.
I think I'll have a sarsaparilla. I think I'll have it with the dude. And I met the actual dude. He came to all the Toronto International Film Festivals, and he told anyone and everyone that the character of, Jeff Bridges, the Dude-a-rama, the Dude-a-remo, was after him. And everyone was going, the Rob Salems and the Jim Slotecks. Yeah, that's the real dude. I'm like, well, sit down. Let me buy you a sarsaparilla.
It's funny you mentioned Rob Salem. He was literally here last week making his Toronto Mike debut. We had a great chat, me and Rob.
Beautiful.
Next time he comes by, he's coming by actually soon, relatively soon, in June, with Rita Zekas. Apparently, they're sleeping together. Have you heard this rumor?
Oh, I think they've been doing that for 30 or 40 years. And we've had some very interesting late nights. Not so much Rita, but Rob Salem with Steve Anthony. They are like, just, completely, what do you call it, at the hip? They're
thick as thieves, we'll say. Yeah, they're thick as thieves. So do you know how Steve's doing? I think about Steve a lot because he's a beloved FOTM, but how's he doing? He moved back to Toronto, right?
Well, him and I, it's funny because him and I have the same birthday week. Jake Edwards, brother Jake, let me tell you, he's April 1st. Steve Anthony's April 2nd. Andy Frost is April 3rd. Dick Smythe, and here's how things looked at Dick Smythe this morning. My lady and I were up at and I'm on the 5th, and Letterman's on the whatever. Wow. It's just like birthday week celebration, and I do talk to Steve. He's in great stead, and he's back in Toronto, and I don't think he might, me saying anything, but, he had a bed and breakfast out there in the Bay of Quinte, and then, COVID-19 hits, and what are you going to do with all those empty rooms? So you ask him that.
I'll ask him that.
He's rebounded quite nicely. I think he wakes up in the morning and does 12 or 14, radio promos for different stations from his basement, which I've been to, in his underwear, which I haven't been to. But that's not really important.
But enough about Meat Sue, okay? Listen, bye-bye, Mon Cowboy. All right. Mm-hmm. So
oh, did you want me to tell you that story?
Well, you can retell it because I've had this chat with Steve Anthony only because I had a huge crush on Meat Sue, so I lived precariously through Steve Anthony. Right.
And she's absolutely the most gorgeous Quebec. Well, good God, I grew up in Montreal. Steve and I went to the same high school in Loyola, an all-boys school, Catholic school. We'd wake up in the morning and say, gee, what kind of a tie am I going to wear to impress Mr. Seguin in math? Anyway, I wake up one morning and I see Steve and Mitsu flirting on Much Music, and I wake up the next day because I got to get up early, and Mitsu was sitting there. She had snuck into my room, naked. And supposedly she had to be because she stole my Montreal Canadiens bathrobe. And Steve's off, on his other morning show. She's sitting at the counter, Steve Anthony's gone, I'm sorry, Mitsu and I. She's smoking a cigarette, poking over a plate of cold poutine, and thinking, oh, this is going to be the next, welcome, bienvenue Quebec. This has got to be in a billboard. Mitsu, in my Habs,
wow.
Coach coat, smoking a cigarette, eating cold poutine. It's like, come on.
I just need John, I need a moment. That's a why. I mean, I've heard that before and it still hits me, man. What a story that is. Dis-moi.
Hold on. She comes in. I'm typing for my City TV Sports, and I'm typing, and she comes in and she starts massaging my back. Thank you. And she says, thank you very much for being so nice this morning. You're so nice. Only in a incredibly sexy, Montreal, Quebec accent. And everyone in the newsroom's going, Gallagher, come on. Really? I mean, really? I said, bye, Mitsu. We'll see you later for drinks.
Wow.
And the hits just keep on coming.
Wow. John, we should talk more often. These are amazing. Now, quickly, though, when you said he was off doing his morning show, that was the CFNY morning show, right? Before Humble and Fred, it was Steve Anthony and Fred doing CFNY, right?
But there's a guy in St. Louis, Mike, he's in St. Louis, and you'll see the juxtaposition of Steve Anthony, who does like 40 or 50 different radio shows during the day, all from the same studio. It's 18 degrees in St. Louis, Missouri. ZZ Top coming up after the news. And he'll do one from Jacksonville. He'll do one. Steve does like 12 or 15, as I mentioned, voiceover, good morning, coming up, your chance to win a Dodge Ram truck. And he does those for like 15, 20 stations. And let's say there's no red letter days coming for Steve Anthony. That's a pretty cool way to make a living. It's a terrific voice, and a better man.
No, big fan of that man. Big fan of that guy. Big fan of yours. But how many times do I have to say Dodge Ram before there's one in my driveway as a gift from the good people at Dodge Ram? How many more?
You know what? Is there and again, we're completely changing the subject. My lawyer's wife had her Ram Dodge truck stolen from her property up at Yonge and Shepherd. Oh. And I've had so many complaints and reading, because I'm a voracious reader. The Sun, the Star, the Post, the Globe. Everyone's having their cars stolen, out of their driveways. My humble brag, $76,000 BMW 325i was stolen from my house. Just before I left to come to Halifax. I'm like, oh man, so what's going on there? And people are barging into your homes late at night just to get the fob and the keys to your car. They're not stealing your big screen TV. They're stealing the keys to your car and driving away.
It's a big story, and I guess we're working on it. I don't know, but I will say that my secret, and you can borrow the secret, is to always drive a shitbox.
Or have a garage you can lock the son of a gun in. Right,
or hire security like certain rappers on the bridle path. If you can hire.
Oh boy.
Okay, listen. You mentioned COVID. Okay, there's so many places I want to go here. One is that here. Let me do this first. You mentioned CFNY, where we would. Well, I mentioned it actually, where Steve Anthony was on CFNY before there was a Humble and Fred. There's actually an episode of Danny Kingsbury from a couple of weeks ago where we kind of break down that whole story of how Humble and Fred was born, but. Now I'm thinking, I just want to shout out Ian Handsome Man Thing, who...
Another former Haligonian talent.
This is where I'm going. Yeah. He discovered Toronto Mike because he listened to Brother Jake on Toronto Mike because he was wanting to hear about the show he listened to as a young man. And you're involved with that too, right? Is it Q102?
You're talking about Q104.
Oh, Q104. I'm sorry.
No problem.
But
no problem.
Is that the station that you were at with Brother Jake before you came to Q?
No, I was under the Chum umbrella. You see what I did there? Yes, John. We see what you did. I was under. It'd be just the East Coast version, of Chum FM and Chum AM, and I was doing. And we were killing. We had a 47 share, and I was a radio guy. That's like what? 47. It's like we're killing, and the FM side had like a 30 share. So, and I was on both, during the morning show and the afternoon show. But Jake and I would just see each other at softball games and just events, and we just became thick as thieves. And it was because I was playing a softball game against his old team, Q104. Right. I'm like, how's brother? This is years after he left to go to Toronto. How's Brother Jake doing? And they're like, he's fantastic. What are they doing for sports there? Well, they just lost. They've lost their sports guy who went to Ottawa. His name is not popping up. Anyway, he says, "Why don't you give him a call?" Gave him a call that night. A month later, had a job at Q107 in Toronto.
Wow,
changed everything.
Okay, well, shout out to Ian Hanamansing, who maritimer like yourself, who is listening now because he loves hearing the old radio stories. So, but.
No, and congratulations to Ian. What a talent.
Yeah.
The guy's as smooth as a baby's bottom.
Well, he's a handsome man thing.
Yes.
And when he comes on Toronto Mike, I'm going to introduce him that way. Welcome to Toronto Mike, Ian Handsome Man Thing. Hey, and also you mentioned COVID. COVID really wreaked havoc with the bread and breakfast in Prince Edward County. But I blame COVID for killing Gallagher and Gross Save the World. Can you, for the record, definitively tell me why did that beautiful podcast have to end? Was it COVID?
It wasn't that a great Gallagher and Gross Save the World. And we just bounced off each other like we've known each other for years. And talk about talents. Peter Gross, I believe I had someone, and I don't care. He's a good friend of mine from the Shark's Den, who owned the excuse my stroke.
You're talking about Michael Weckerly. Michael Weckerly. He owns the El Macombo.
Thank you. He has his own studio. We're going to do the show there, and then COVID hit, and he couldn't book Mini Pearl. And God bless her with the tag in her head. He couldn't because there was no that reference brought to you by Hee Haw 1968.
I get that reference, John. I remember Minnie Pearl, so I'm old enough to remember that.
It's in Montreal. It always came on before Hockey Night in Canada. So we're like, oh, I'm a picking and you're a grinning. Come on, the Habs are tied. Anyway, he couldn't book anybody, and when he did, he was charging $400 a ticket, but that went into Thomas Crapper's water closet. That idea. We had how many shows did we do at your wonderful studios in Etobicoke?
I got to check it out, but it was about 35 or so around there.
Yeah, and they were all just for fun because they were all really. They didn't have a timeline. It wasn't time efficient or time sensitive. We should rerun those. That'd be fun because I just talked to Peter in the weekend. I talked to him after every major horse race. And how about that Kentucky Derby by a nose and a nose and a nose?
Right.
Anyway, he knows more about horse racing than anyone else. I think it was COVID, and we had all the sponsors lined up, and then we tried again, and no one was doing anything.
And next thing you know, John Gallagher is in Halifax. So did Peter, by the way, next time you talk to Peter, get him to tell you the story of how a recent Toronto mic'd appearance by Peter Gross has us both in some very hot water with the courts in this province. We don't even know how the story ends. Yeah, that's a teaser because this story is developing very quickly. But yeah, anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that because Lauren Honickman to my right is telling me to shut the fuck up. So, okay, Lauren, I'm not going to say the word.
Lauren's there.
He lives with me because I need legal representation at all time, John. Okay. Hey,
Lauren Honickman. He's the man. We're talking to the man. We're talking to the Lauren Honickman. He's the man. Who's the man? Lauren Honickman. I hope he's sitting next to you.
He's always in my thoughts anyway. But here, again, we got serious because you lost your mom recently, and I'm so sorry, John, because as you remember, when we were talking about your book, your wild book, that last chapter, when you're listening to David Bowie and you're thinking about ending it all because of the issues you have with your father, I mean, holy smokes! Everybody, can we still get that book? Can people still get a copy of your book?
Yeah, yes, you can, Mike. I think it's on Amazon. Could still be at some good bookstores near you.
Okay.
Some high quality bookstores. No, but Mom was Mom was the shield because when Dad had a bad day and Dad get his liquor on, he would come after me with a frying pan, and the fun times when Mom had to just keep him away. He came back from World War II, and Daddy had some issues, and Daddy liked to drink, but Daddy drank for the government, so he just took it out on little Johnny. But that's that's
it's in the book. As
good, it's in the book, buddy.
Nick Kiprios would say, it's in the book, buddy.
It ain't pretty. I'll warn you, kids. It ain't pretty.
It ain't pretty. It just looks that way. Okay, but there's another guy. We lost somebody who everyone across this country who gives a shit about sports knows the name Dutchy. Darren Dutchyshen. Can you tell us about your relationship with Dutchy back at TSN? You were there in the late 90s. Please share some memories of Dutchy for us.
Well, it's like you wake up from a nap, or in my case, any freaking nap, and you look at your Facebook page and go out loud, feck. That's F-E-K, boys and girls. Dutchyshen was just terrific on the air, great writer, had a professional and loving rapport, with everyone who we work with, and I had to shower with the guy next to him at our facilities at TSN. The man had muscles in places that most men or women don't have places. Past the Dutchy down the left-hand side, I said, well, do that. Just don't drop the Irish Spring. We were hired in the summer of 1998. I did the Gallagher show, and he was just still a gargantuan talent. And there was no score. Sportsnet? What? Who? They haven't turned on a camera. And Darren whispered in my ear, he says, Johnny, we're going to freaking run this place. Well, almost. I'm getting a little emotional because I'm 57 is just too young. But we laughed all the time, lovingly and wantingly, and it was great with everyone else. At the end of the Gallagher show on TSN, we do a 2-minute bit, and he'd always go, "Hey Johnny, your Habs are playing tonight. You're gonna love this." and we just got along so well together. And he's going to be missed. I didn't see it, Mike, but I heard that James Duffy, Brad, I'm sorry, who were his other co-hosts? See, don't have a stroke.
It's Rod Smith.
Rod Smith and the lovely blonde in between. She was with Dutchy for
Jennifer Hedger.
Jennifer Hedger. And they started to cry on the air. I'm like, well, this is the mark that this guy made. And, in the words of Michael Stipe of REM, Dutchy, I'll see you in the heaven if I make the list. Yeah. And by the way, Keith Pelly, who ran TSN back then, thanks for taking a flyer on some wonderful ladies and gentlemen in this business of show in our young 30s. And like it or not, you've got excellent talent. Good luck with those leaps. But he just lit up the room, Mike. We had so many fun times together. And 57, that's
no.
Fill in the blanks there, man. That was bad.
No, great loss. Now, I never got the pleasure of meeting Dutchy, but of course I've now heard from dozens of people like you who knew him, and to a T, everybody will tell you this guy was the life of the party, a fun guy, a likable guy. Like by all accounts, this guy was larger than life.
No, terrific guy. He'll be greatly missed, and I wish I knew he was suffering from cancer. The same thing with Mark Daly. I should have gone and visited the guy and just. And at the end, his friends and family told me he was cracking jokes and just so inappropriate. He once told me there was a woman on the air, and we all know her at TSN. She says she's going to leave TSN to go into film and into acting. And Dutchy at the press conference leans in, well, we know it's not going to be the porn industry.
Rest well, Dutchy.
Milk coming out of my nose because he only whispered it to me. I'm like, that was the kind of guy he was. He was just, oh, baby. Good one there.
Oh,
I'll tell you.
Good segue, because now I'm hearing a tremendous, the best, let's call it the best Bob Cole impression this side of Mike Richards. Please share with me any memories about, now, 57, far too young, Dutchy. No, look, I can see 57 right ahead of me, and far too soon to leave the party. But at least Bob
I've seen
Cole,
it in my rearview mirror. It's not bad. It's coming up close.
But Bob Cole, had a good
90,
run, but talk to me about Bobby.
Right?
Yeah.
That's for the old baby calls. But when he was really excited, he'd call out "Gore," a hybrid of goal and score, or is goal, skull. Now, a couple of fun facts. One night, Mr. Cole and I sent you a picture. Did you get that little photo I sent you?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, it's Bob Cole and my good lady, live-in common law wife. A couple of fun facts before I get to this story. A maid can never enter Bob Cole's hotel room. Bob will not allow his room to be cleaned under any circumstances while he's staying at a hotel. And you cannot do a Bob Cole impression in front of him. I remember my friend Scott Russell, member of CBC, telling me that he tried to do a Cole impersonation at a pregame meeting, and he didn't talk to Bob for 2 weeks after Bob gave him the stink eyes. Like, oh, baby, let me use a good one there, mister. I'll tell you more. Oh! So anyway, I'm at the Steve Stavros private underground lair of the ACC. I took Chick, my girlfriend, and looking quite ravishing. And Gary Bettman was there. Wayne was there. And we're making the rounds. And there's Pat Quinn. And he just called me Little Irish all the time. How you doing, Little Irish? To give me a headlock. Pat freaking Quinn. Anyway, we're sipping some fine whiskey. I looked around and noticed Bob Cole flirting with my girlfriend Chick across the room. We thought it was nothing until I got the phone call from Chick. She goes, very funny. I says, what? Well, I got a call. Go. Obviously, you doing an impersonation of Bob Cole. She played the voice message. She goes, hello, Chick. It's Bob Cole. Bob Cole here. I don't know what you're doing tonight, but I'm downtown. I'm going to Biff's Steakhouse. Call me later at the hotel when you get a chance. I'll tell you. And it wasn't even a normal voice. He was doing the play-by-play, trying to pick up my girlfriend.
Wow.
Now, she hadn't given her her business card, Mike, and somehow he tracked her down to her office, got the number, and kept calling her to ask her out, and she did it again. I'm like, well, obviously it's Mike Richards. And it wasn't. It was Bob Cole trying to pick up my 9-year common law wife. And then it didn't really dawn on me until I heard Catherine Humphreys on City TV once, and she's like, with Bob Cole, and you got to look out for that Bob Cole. Oh, Don't squeeze me there like a Charmin commercial. I'm like, I knew then that he was quite the ladies' man. And I'm like, this is great. So at Chick's, party, she was a Bay Street exec. We played the Bob Cole. Oh, baby, Bob Cole here. Going out to the steakhouse. Like you might like to join me there. Oh, mister, gonna be a fun night. I can't do a Mike Richards. I can't do a Bob Cole, but that's the way it sounded. Absolute truth story.
Wow. Wait. First of all, you didn't finish the story. Did he score with your girlfriend?
God, no. She never answered him back. She never called the hotels like this. She's living with me, so it was just the strangest happenstance to have a guy of that talent and magnitude. I said on social media, I want to clear the air, that he was the gold standard. Danny Gallagher was better than Bob Cole. Dan Kelly
says you. But you're a Habs fan. You're a Habs fan, so you have a bias there. You would have heard more Danny Gallagher than you would have heard Bob Cole, right? Yeah, like that's
everyone thinks that Danny and Dick and Danny, the Dick and Danny show. I grew up in hockey in Canada. Everyone thinks that they were, biased. If it's Montreal 10 and the Washington Capitals 2, I've never seen Danny get more excited over a goal than the other team scored, including Gary McAdam in the 1980 in overtime, the first round series against Minnesota. I sound like Bob Cole here. Oh, baby.
Everything is happening.
Good fellow from PEI. And then you get Bob Cole, who's doing the Leafs game every Saturday night, and he sounded like a homer because you had Bob and you had the Leafs every Saturday night for 25, 30 years.
Well, this is my perspective. So I'm a little bit younger than you, and I grew up obviously a Leafs fan in Toronto. So to me, if I had to pick who's my favorite all-time hockey play-by-play voice, to me it's Bob Cole. I like Bob Cole with Harry Neal. That's my go-to duo. But I never thought Bob Cole was biased because he had the same, to me, to my ears, he had the same enthusiasm, the same calls for the opposition to the Leafs than he did for the Leafs. The guy who is rightfully super biased because he is the regional broadcaster who works for the team is Joe Bowen. You can't listen to a Leafs game without the obvious "Go Leafs Go" coming from Joe Bowen.
And the Holy Mackinac. Yeah.
And so Joe does not call a game both sides, right? Joe is there unabashedly with Jim Ralph, who's great as well. He's unabashedly rooting for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I never got that vibe one time from Bob Cole.
There is a Bob Cole drinking game. Have you heard of this?
Tell me.
It's fascinating. When Bob says the right first name but the wrong family name of the player, you take a drink. When Bob has the wrong first name but the right family name, take another drink. I could go on and on. When Bob goes, oh baby, anything can happen there, take another drink. When Bob says Holy Mackinac, take several drinks. You've had too many already.
That's Bonesy.
I feel bad about Bonesy, and he worked in Halifax. You wouldn't believe the talent that worked here, including like Brian Henderson and Gordon Martineau.
Wait, but Gordon Martineau Montreal? But you're telling me Gordon Martineau started in Halifax?
Gordon Martineau started in Halifax, Mike.
Okay,
and so did Bob. So did Joe Bowen. I felt so bad, and again, it's been raked up and down around the corner. When Morgan Riley scored last year to win the series for Tampa, poor. And they were sitting in, the Leafs didn't have any money to send Ralphie, Jim Ralph, and them down to Tampa, for the game, and they went into overtime. They were looking at a television freaking screen, right? A monitor. And when Morgan Riley scored, poor Joe Bowen, Mo, Riley, holy mac. And then Jim's probably giving him the elbow. I think that was Tavares who tipped it in. Oh, it doesn't matter. But really, it did. I feel bad. But again,
he doesn't get the opportunity to call many series-winning goals for this team because it's only happened once in 20 years.
You're dead on. You're dead on. Well, I mean, during the Shannon plan, he's been there for 10 years and just won. And one playoff one. It's almost like Jerry Howard. Now, I didn't mind who did the play-by-play for the Blue Jays, but like Tom and Jerry were like, they were like the voice of summer. Hello, friends. Jerry Howard here for Royal Hooking. There she goes. I loved Jerry.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, I still love Jerry.
Yeah.
And every time I wanted him on the TSN or the City TV CP24 show, him and Tom Cheek would come on. In fact, they sent their wives home to get nice shirts to come on the show because they just had their golf shirts on. I'm like, well, God love you for that, Tom and Jerry. But they're the voice of summer, Mike, right?
No. So I mentioned
Blue Jay fan.
I like Bob Cole and Harry Neal for hockey. Well, there's no doubt if it's baseball, I want Tom Cheek and Jerry Howarth. That's my voice of summer, without a doubt.
Thank you.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
John, how you holding up?
And,
just because I know about your post-stroke fatigue syndrome, you okay for 5 more minutes here?
I have 5 more minutes. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, I'm, again, the sunshine.
You sound strong, so let me...
Little chocolate lab, Jack Johnson, named after the first black heavyweight champion of all time. My girlfriend's like, oh, Jack Johnson, I have all his albums. Not that one. Oh, Jack Johnson, the 6'9" defenseman for Columbus. No. But the boxer, 1919.
Love it.
Greatest heavyweight champion of all time, Little Abner. So I'm just sitting with a ball and with my, I won't say pants around my ankles, but they're getting there. I got to tell you.
You sound strong. I just want you to know that the stroke you got, I know it makes you tired and there's a lot of recovery, but your voice and your patter, if you will, to me sounds strong. So I just, that's good news for the Gallagher heads out there. Okay, couple of quick hits on our way out. So you're doing, obviously, I hear you in the Dodge ad, Dodge Ram. Maybe one will show up in my driveway later today. But you're also doing cartoon work. You're doing some big cartoon work, right?
I'm on Teletoon on Saturday mornings. I've always wanted to be a talking dog. I'm now a talking dog named Boomhound, and I get to talk like this. I'm part sportscaster, Natch, part boombox, hello. But, ever grow up as a kid? I'm a little older. I mean, Hot Dog from the Archies and Scooby-Doo. Hey, Scoob! What? And even the nemesis for Josie and the Pussycats, he was like,
right.
And they go, okay, John, do 2 takes and then just go off the roof. Go off, jump off the roof, do whatever you want. And I just, talk about, meeting girls and like, well, how old's your kid? Well, he's 8, 9 years old. Have I got a great show for him? And so there's an in. You're actually a talking dog on a Saturday morning cartoon. You bet. And the fact, and people do, I'll say this, people go, boy, you do post a lot of, you and Don Cherry and, you and Muhammad Ali and stuff. I posted a Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em video thing, all the hits, all the saves. It's Don Cherry's Rock'em Sock'em 6 now available. And I got a gig because someone said, I got a guy.
Right.
I got a guy. He's a friend of mine. He's a former sportscaster. He's on Facebook, and he did Rock'em Sock'em 6. And I got a gig because of the Rock'em Sock'em 6. So I've got an ego the size of Mount Rushmore. But you know what? If I can get these gigs just by putting them on Don Cherry's website, so is your old man. Go get them.
Just smart marketing. But now I'm kind of saddened by something I'm going to share with you, which is that I always wanted to have Don Cherry on Toronto Mic'd. And back when he used to do what was it called? Grapevine? Whatever his radio.
The Grapevine.
Okay, so he had a show that would be syndicated on the Fan 590, him and Brian Williams. And at that time, that
was great. Yeah.
Grapeline or Grapevine, because he had both, like one was a TV, one was a radio. Anyway, my buddy...
Well, the Grapevine was his bar, I think, Mike, but the Grapeline was his radio show, which was fantastic. God,
so I wrote Don Cherry an actual letter to his home in Mississauga, like snail mail, okay? Mm-hmm. And I said, this is who I am. Yeah. I have a podcast. I'd love to, just like I'm doing with you now, I'd love to have a phone call with you and just talk a bit about your career and some stories. This is, many years ago because he's still on the Fan 590. And he phoned me back. So to his credit, Don Cherry called me back and he had a great chat with me and he told me he would come on my show, but he said he thought I was competition for Fan 590 and he didn't want to upset the people at Sportsnet. So he politely declined. Well, anyways, recently with the passing of Dutchy, I started thinking about, Dutchy never came on Toronto Mic'd. I did ask him like 7 times over the last 8 years, but...
Not that you remember the number or anything, right?
Well, I had to go search my Gmail. I don't delete these Gmails. And then it turns out he never once replied, so I don't even know if he was no, or he just never cared to answer or whatever. But anyway, he never came on.
Now, John Derringer was also elusive to my friend T.O. Mike.
Well, he phoned me, he said, here's my thought on Derringer. There's two things going on here. I'll come back to the Dutchy thing because it ties into Don Cherry, but I will keep track of that.
Sure.
Except to say, with John Derringer, here's my thought on that. I believe with all my heart that John Derringer knew that I knew too much because of my relationship with Humble and Fred. Because Humble and Fred were down the hallway at CFNY when John Derringer was at Q107. And let's put it this way. They don't like each other. Okay. Humble Howard and John Derringer never liked each other. And Humble Howard and Fred knew everything because women like Colleen Rushholm and they just knew everything before the news broke from Jennifer Valentine. So I believe that John Derringer, who politely declined, at least he said no, thank you. He wouldn't come on because he was worried what I might say because I knew everything. That's my thought on that one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And still real quick with Jennifer Valentine. And I listened to her. Oh my God, it was excruciating. But I love Jennifer. A funny story. We hosted with, speaking to Gordon Martineau and Monica Diol and all the big names. Her and I were, it was the New Year's Eve, big New Year's Eve bash. And the producers were like, okay, you got to kiss Jennifer Valentine at the stroke of midnight in 3, 2. And her boyfriends were so mad because Jennifer and I would go, so I know Jennifer so well. Right. But during her on-air, diatribe, because she's actually dealing with the same lawyer that I know. Anyway, long story. Most of it is Stephen Hurlbut, who was the most evil man in television broadcasting history, who was the news director at City TV for years and years, former cameraman. He was the guy who really should have been raked over the coals. Derringer I never saw that. I worked with John for years and years. I never saw him, and I worked with him from 86 to, whenever we went to Montreal. I never saw him disrespect or talk down to women. He probably did. You got girls, Maureen Holloway and Danny Elwell. And
Andrea Ruse.
Other big names. And what's that?
Oh, I was just Andrea Ruse. I got a lengthy list here.
I've never met her, but Jennifer. I mean, it breaks my heart.
Jackie Delaney. There's another one. Jackie Delaney was telling me on
Jackie Delaney. Jackie Delaney. We have a interesting past. But I'm saying I never saw that in John. I never saw it. When I talked to Jennifer, oh boy, and then I talked to Humble and Fred. They went, oh boy.
Right.
So Johnny, come back slowly and take your time. Or don't come back at all. I'm sure you got enough money rolling in just to sit back with your... Did I say pants around my ankles 3 times? But it's not
well, John, can he come back? And by the way, 2 things here. Can he come back from this? Or does he have to lay low for the rest of his life? And are people confusing you two? Because a lot of people were telling me, oh, did you hear about John Gallagher? And then I'd be like, oh, do you mean John Derringer? And people got you conflated, I will say. So do people think you were doing this? Tell me.
All the time. They'd go, hey, Derringer or Gallagher, how about those halves? They suck. I go, I'm John Derringer, not John Gallagher. If you want to talk to John Gallagher. I had the same thing with Dan Gallagher. Hey, Dan, right. I keep walking. Dan, love you and much music. Dan, it's John. Right. Okay. But Derringer and I get it all the time when you go to the troll section of any media outlet. Yeah, Gallagher guy. Yeah, boy, he really knows how to treat a lady. I'm like, and I don't even respond. It's just, you do the LeBron James clap of the freaking chalk and just walk, it's just not.
But can he come back? I know you guys were close. It sounds like you were ignorant to his, verbal abuse of these women, but so you must have been floored when you found out.
I
now you know.
You.
Yeah, now you know.
Right.
But I
think that ship is, I don't know, Mike. I don't know if he's going to come back. We don't talk. He doesn't answer my emails or texts. I thought I'd give him, how long's it been? Good Christ.
Couple of years.
I thought I'd give him his
space,
his time and leeway to work things out. But I'm sure he's fine.
Okay. He's financially.
If he comes back, it'd be a heck of a podcast. Good God. Not that he's any competition to T.O. Mike.
Well, he can come over here and we can talk about it all. Maybe that'll be his comeback will be that he actually comes clean and apologizes on Toronto Mike. So John Derringer, if you're listening, come on over and just let's have a heart-to-heart about this, right? But Mr. Gallagher, where I was going with Don Cherry is I recently chatted with Timothy Cherry. Tim Cherry is, of course...
Yes, so he is your porthole into the computer of Don Cherry. Go to Tim.
Right. So I'm talking to Tim, and I'm saying, Tim, hey, I'd even though he's 90 years old, I'd still love to have a phone call with Don Cherry because, again, I'm not afraid to talk to people who have been quote unquote canceled or whatever. I'm happy to have a conversation with any reasonable human being, and I consider Don Cherry a reasonable human being. We can have a conversation. Yeah. I said, let's have a fair and a civil conversation. And Tim said that Don, at this point in Don's life, he is completely done doing external media. Like he'll do his own podcast with his son and his family, but he's actually
except if you're Joe Warmington, then you got a front seat.
Well, I'm watching closely to see if that happens again because apparently, they've made a decision that Don's done doing external communication, and it made me sad because we talked about Bob Cole and Harry Neal. Well, tied to that on a Saturday night, of course, was Coach's Corner with FOTM Ron McLean and Don Cherry. And, for better or worse, and I never agreed with his politics.
I saw what you did there, yeah. Mr. Sanctimonious in
well, that's his title, John. That's his title. Okay. But bottom line is, it did make me sad that this voice I heard, and he used to be... before things got a little ridiculous, absolutely appointment. Like now, I don't watch anything during the first intermission. I go do other stuff, But I used to make an appointment. Like, the first period's over. I'm gonna go get a drink or go to the washroom, do my whatever, get some food. But I'm gonna be back in front of that television for Coach's Corner. That's how it was for decades.
Yep.
So I'm sad that basically Don might be phasing out his. That part of his life. It just reminds you that time moves slowly but carries on.
I must tell you before I go, the first thing that I did the next morning after they fired him was call Don Cherry. And he called in a couple of days. I tell you there, Spike Boy, you're a good, I tell you right now, a good guy from Quebec there, or a visor anyway. He says, I'm just going to do it from my kitchen, Johnny. I'm going to do it with Tim. I'm going to do it with my grandson. He's going to do, work the board. I love you. I'm like, let's just do it at 9:01. We'll get Labatt's. We'll get Molson or whoever. We'll just pile on the money. I tell you, good idea. And he said no. He's going to just make it a family thing. Is that still on the air?
Yeah. It is. You know why? When Ron Ellis passed away, I had a really, really, on Toronto Mike, a great conversation with Steve Paikin. People should check that out. But then I was curious. I actually wanted to know what Don Cherry had to say. So I still am interested in his experience, his insight. It's just unfortunate that he's a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to some of the politics and in social progress in this fine country. But Don Cherry and his hockey expertise, I still appreciate it. Like I don't have to take him. I don't have to worship the goons and be xenophobic when it comes to Canadians better than Europeans. Like I don't have to share that. I still enjoy hearing from the man, and I wanted to hear what he has to say about Ron Ellis. So the answer is yes. Don Cherry still records his podcast,
and he's still relevant. And wouldn't you like to hear? Love to hear what he's talking about when it comes to running goaltenders and that call and too many.
But I just wish he had stuck to hockey.
Seven of them. And does he know about too many men of the ice? And just the non-calls and the stupid calls, Cherry would have a field day. And I want to listen, and I want to know,
Right.
And by the way, may I say that, how do I say this nicely without ticking off a lot of people? There's a lot of people on the air right now. Okay. Calm down, John. Don't let it get away. The O'Neills of the world, who's the old...
O-Dog.
Who's the ex-defenseman? O-Dog. Who's the ex-defenseman for the Canucks, who's on Hockey Night in Canada?
You're thinking of Bieksa.
Bieksa, yeah. There's guys like him, and I love Elliot, Ron, but these guys look like they haven't had sex in months. Smile. I haven't seen any of them smile. There's other guys like out there like that. I'm like, come on, make it fun. It's Hockey Night in Canada. The whole world's watching. Good God. Don't talk about the X's and O's and stuff like that. It's, be a Cherry, don't be a BXA. Be a Cherry. Am I?
Be a Gallagher.
At all, or am I way up?
I hear you. I will say I've lost complete interest in everything outside the game. So last night's a good example. My wife,
that's right. You don't watch.
No.
Hockey Night in Canada.
So my wife is born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta. And she's very excited about, actually having a hockey team that can win a playoff series. I don't have that, so as you know. So her team was, Game 7 was last night, and we made it. It was appointment viewing last night. I actually was going to go see a Neil Young concert, and I decided to spend the night with my wife watching the Edmonton Oilers. But I'll catch Neil in early July. And remind me, before we say goodbye, to talk to you about Honeymoon Suite. But okay. So
I'd love that. It's funny because it was with my post-stroke syndrome. Okay, Johnny, enough. Okay, you have to sleep 5 freaking times a day. It was 3-0 with 8 minutes to go,
right.
And when you called me, and I'm just like, can we do this tomorrow? Which we had planned anyway. And then it was 3-2. How was the finish? I got to go downstairs and watch it.
Right.
I was cheering for Vancouver because, as a Leaf fan, my first cousin is Gary Monahan, and he played for the Canucks and Leafs for years. And any former Canuck is a cousin of mine, Mike.
Well, listen, my point is, I caught myself doing what I always do with Leaf games, which is I watch the game and I don't watch anything between it doesn't draw me in. So I'm not saying it's broken. I like Elliot Friedman. I like these guys. Elliot's been in the basement,
Love him.
But for whatever reason, there's nothing that makes me feel like, I need to hear and see these people.
Exactly. Entertain me. Don't give me stuff. I'd watched for years Major League Baseball on Saturday afternoons, and Tony Kubek is talking about a guy who hit 119 for Walla Walla, Washington. Shut up. Give me Bob Costas, or give me Howard Cosell.
Right. Hey, what do you think about bringing? What do you think? Bob Uecker's still with us. Do you believe it? I can't imagine how old he is now, but he seemed old when I was like a teenager. So actually, before I was a teenager, when he was on that show, Mr. Belvedere, I always thought he was an old guy. And we're going back to the mid-'80s, I think. So that's wild. But okay, just real quick, what do you think of this?
It's funny you'd say that because I don't want to, tramp on your podcast competition.
Tramp away.
But I'm going to be on tonight on iHeartRadio at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, talking about with the Jim Richards showgram, who's a talented guy, not as talented as you. We're going with all the athletes who turned into movies, and Bob Uecker, and I got a story about him and Yogi Berra and Billy Martin and Tommy Lasorda and Duke Snider. That's going to knock your socks off.
All right, that sounds interesting to me. Jim Richards, got a lot of respect for Jim Richards, and another guy who won't come over for his Toronto Mike debut. So, but I have a lot of respect for Jim Richards. I'm not bitter about that.
Let me make some phone calls, Cha-Cha.
What do you?
I'll put them on your. And I've been to your house several times with my good friend Peter Gross. It's a wonderful environment, and you're so welcoming. And
come on.
And during the second or third show, I get to pop a bottle of Australian Chardonnay, and you're like, "Bring it on."
Yeah, well, that's what my freezer's for. John's
I may do that
alcohol.
right now. Which is,
All right, so before we go, though, I'm going to pitch an idea, and then I'm going to ask you one question, and then I'll set you free. But the idea I have is we need to bring back Coach's Corner, but I don't. It's not going to be called Coach's Corner. You got to give it a new name because I feel like you have somebody like a PK Subban, who after the first period, he talks about all the stuff you want to talk about, like just PK and a co-host. Maybe it's Ron McLean. I don't care actually who it is. But like somebody who's got opinions, has an interesting take on things, is articulate. It doesn't have to be PK Subban, but somebody like that. He's the name that always pops in my head. But that's what I want. I want a return of Coach's Corner. It can't be Dawn. It can't have that name. But let's bring something back that will make me interested after the first period.
And you're right. There's so many great names. I don't watch enough because I don't get the feeds here. I don't think anyone in Canada really kind of gets the feeds, but and Brett Hull was terrific. Whenever Cherry was on with Hull on the NBC broadcast, I mean, it was just gold, Jerry, gold. Yeah, but there's so many great names out there, including some of the wonderful women who have been on. Their names are nameless, faceless. I mean, not nameless. Not faceless, but nameless. I just can't remember their names.
Well, Cassie Campbell was there for a long time, but she quit. And it turns out her husband, there's a conflict of interest because her husband's involved with an NHL team. It might be the Calgary Flames, as I think out loud in my head. Okay. But there was a conflict. So she went on to do work with the PWHL. Did you catch any of the women's professional hockey league this season?
Just the highlights. Just the highlights. They look. Cheryl Pounder.
Yeah, she's on TSN though, but she's great. Yeah, she's on TSN.
She'd be terrific.
Yeah,
and Cassie Campbell. Funny story. Before we go,
Yeah.
I see her all the time, and I go, Cassie, how are you? Give me a hug. Hello. Give me a little kiss. And she's married and she's just wonderful.
Oh, now she's married to some guy, GM or assistant GM with Calgary, Pascal.
Oh, there you go. You just mentioned him. I do apologize. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, don't have a stroke.
You've had a stroke, John. It's all good, buddy.
I just had a stroke. Exactly. John Gallagher had a stroke 2 years ago, and he's now again wallowing in his own mediocrity. Hey, it's 8:12. I go to Cassie Campbell every time I see her. Cassie, how many times? And this old chestnut has been going on since '98. Not gonna. Cheryl, not Cheryl. Cassie, how many times have I asked you out and you said no? Wait for the pause. Every time, John. Every time. True story.
So she's the one, okay? Somebody's got to say no to John Gallagher. Come on.
Oh, my God.
Hey,
but not Peter Gross.
No.
Not Peter Gross. He's a tiger.
Love that guy.
Well,
hey,
isn't this been a nice hour?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, Mike.
Well,
You called me
last question,
night
though.
or
You got
yesterday,
one more question, John, before we say our parting remarks here.
Uh-oh, I told you, no gotcha question.
Yeah, one gotcha question, but you won't kill me after this. Don't worry. How much did you get for your Toronto home when you sold it?
It's an interesting question. I bought the house. I was living with Steve Anthony. I bought the house in 1992 at Avenue in Lawrence. Have you ever been there? Because it's a wonderful
You never
neighborhood.
well, at the neighborhood, there's like a Pusateri's near there, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And Bruno's and my friends own Safaris right across the street from me.
Saint Germain?
I bought that house for two. Dan Ferracuti
Okay, because
and his lovely wife, Kristen Fingerly. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so I used to work for a software company that was owned by a gentleman, love this guy, Walter Maves. And Walter and his wife, Audrey, lived on Saint Germain, and I've been invited there many times. They literally had like a pond in the backyard with the fish, koi or whatever it's called. And I always felt when I was there like, oh, have they seen my T4? Because I don't belong in this neighborhood.
I lived on Saint Germain, exactly. And then Drums and Plaza up the hill. I bought my house for $244,000 in 1992 during the complete low of house buying and selling in Toronto. Sold it in 2021 for $1.8 million.
Good for you.
So now, thanks. And now I bought a house here in Halifax, and the neighbors next to me, I bought it for. I can't believe I'm telling you this because I'm sure my what do you call it? Real estate agent and lawyer are like, you can't say that.
Of course you can.
I bought this house for $388,000 in Halifax during kind of a spike, and the next door neighbor just sold theirs for $648,000. Now I'm not humble brag. You asked, but it's just. I've been to your house. Please tell me you own that beautiful house.
Oh, I do. I actually do own this house with my wife, Monica.
Good for
yes.
You. Smart. It's good.
By the way, you said spike. That seems like the perfect word to say goodbye. So, Spike, let's not let 5 years go by before we chat again. And maybe next time we talk, it's Peter Gross comes over and we both chat you up, and maybe it's like a bonus episode of Gallagher and Gross Save the World, but in the Toronto Mike feed.
It's the greatest the greatest hour that I can spend with you and just talk just about everything, because I didn't have a script. Let's just spitball.
Right.
When I talk to Peter, he always makes me laugh. I'm always got a wonderful smile, and just one of the great mentions of all time. And Harry let go, and I think they lost us at how much I bought my house for. By the way, so. You want to cut that out and just leave it at no, just
That's the best part.
My friend, call any time. What a nice surprise. This is great.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,491st show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm all over the place. I'm at Toronto Mike. You'll find me. John Gallagher. Facebook and Instagram for that man. He's all about the meta. Much love to those who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta, RecycleMyElectronics.ca, Raymond James Canada, the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, Moneris, and Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow when Jeremy Hopkin, the official historian of the Toronto Mic'd podcast, returns, and we're going to discuss 10 buildings that weren't demolished. And we're glad that didn't happen. I was going to say I was glad that happened, but I'm glad that they weren't demolished. It's just when you have the double negatives, who knows what I'm saying anymore. And on that note, on behalf of John Gallagher, see you tomorrow.
And I don't know what the future can hold or will do for me and you, but I'm a much better man for having known you. Oh, you know that's true.